Alright folks, welcome back to the Rational Red channel. I am Michael and today is Derby Day. Kickoff is going to be 1 hour 20 minutes from the time of recording this. Team news is just about to come out. We actually have on social media potentially a little bit of leaked team news, which obviously I wouldn't normally go around sharing that sort of stuff, but it comes out in 5 minutes, so I don't think it matters now. And according to Samuel Luckhurst, well, there's no Cunha, there's no Sesko in the squad. Mainu gets a start. But he does say that it's potentially, fake for whatever reason. But I hope, obviously, it's fake for various reasons. Mainly, like, Carrick's first game in charge against City at Old Trafford. It would be really disappointing if someone undermined him and leaked some team news out to the media. So fingers crossed that's not the case, because we've already got enough problems there. We don't need this as well. I highly doubt it to be true. I have faith that that won't be the case. It's just some BS being spread around. Time will tell. But today is Derby Day. I've got United for a 2-1 win at Old Trafford. Maybe I'm being optimistic, but you have to believe. Stories were coming out yesterday that we saw an interview with Harry Maguire where he's saying that around the squad they're buying into what he's talking about. There's a spring in everyone's step. I'm paraphrasing, but there's a good vibe around the place, people feeling positive, and it's a good environment. So that's great to hear, because that's what we want. Even if it is some kind of spin, it really doesn't matter. We want to hear it. We don't want to hear the opposite, because we need to move on. A couple of little things to talk about that have come out in the media over the night. Oliver Glasner has confirmed he will be leaving Crystal Palace at the end of the season. Now, this is interesting because obviously Glasner has been tipped as a potential candidate for the managerial job. And it's interesting because we had so much discourse around the back three. To then go for a back three manager again, I know he adapts quite a bit, but he is predominantly a back three manager. To then go for that again seems a little strange. He's also not really set the world on fire with Crystal Palace. He's had a decent time. They had the FA Cup, obviously I know that's important, but they went on a bit of a run and they're not doing amazingly well at the moment. That step up to Man United, again, I feel like it's just one of those where it's just too much of a gamble. I feel like we need to go down the path of the tried and the tested. Well, which in light of that, the other news that's come out is that apparently, executives are willing to wait until after the World Cup to appoint a manager. Huge names like Tuchel, Ancelotti and Pochettino will be in the frame. Carrick will only be considered in exceptional circumstances. Sense that no one person can run the club like Sir Alex did. So it looks like they may continue with a multifaceted managerial approach, have a few different people like all helping the coach and working as a team. But I said in another video, the problem you've got is if you do want someone like a Tuchel or an Ancelotti, these or a De Zerbi, these sorts of people are not yes people. They might adapt, but I highly doubt it. They have a way of doing things, and a Tuchel and a De Zerbi as well, they're quite confrontational. So if you are going to work with a part of a team, there's very likely problems going to be waiting to happen. So we'll see how that pans out. But yeah, apparently they're waiting until the end of the World Cup. They want to see how far some of these managers get into the World Cup and then use that as maybe as like a measuring stick as to whether they could be capable of coming into Old Trafford. They want to know if they're able to deal with the pressure of coming to Old Trafford, because it's just a different beast. Most other clubs, every club and every job has pressure, but Man United is just built differently. There's just so much media attention on it that you need to be able to withstand that. So that's why I still think the tried and tested route is the best. I would like an Ancelotti personally, but I do understand the narrative about his age, and whilst I don't think 67 would be too old in general terms, for a long-term plan, he may be too old. So we'll see how that one pans out. Interesting video here that was shared by Stretford Post. Basically, a guy on another podcast talking about how Manchester United fans confuse DNA with nostalgia. And he makes a really interesting argument. And basically what he says was that people talk about the past and these runs, and they talk about the Busby era and then the Ferguson era, but nobody talks about all the stuff that went on in between. And he says, and during that period between Busby and Sir Alex, there was 4 different managers, and it was all over the place. But the winning culture from Busby's to Ferguson, essentially, it wasn't about a DNA. It was about them bringing in their philosophies and instilling their way of football, doing it the way they see it, and sticking to those principles. This idea of a united DNA doesn't exist. What he goes on to say is that he believes that if you're going to call a DNA, it's the idea of how they see United should be as an identity. So it's fast attacking football, counter attacking, wingers, just never giving up, this mentality. But that's a mindset. He's basically saying it's not. Oh, team news has just come out. Here we go. Team news has just come out. This is the lineup as it happens. If my phone wants to hurry up, come on. Why are you taking so long? This is ridiculous. I'm literally just sat here waiting for it to... Oh, here we go. Right. So the team was real. The team was actually real. You got Shaw at left back, Martinez, Maguire, Dallo out on the right. You got Mainu and Casemiro. And then you've got Dorgu, Fernandez, Ahmad, and then Mbeumo up top. There you go. So the league team news looked like it was spot on. Well, no doubt we'll hear a lot about that. That's going to be the next problem we're going to deal with. Looks like Luckhurst was right about that. Yeah, so the leaks were right. Someone's commented. That is disappointing, man. I mean, that is disappointing because for someone to... We just can't catch a break, can we? We just cannot catch a break. Why would somebody do that? Just why? We've got enough. It just harks back to that issue, doesn't it? It's like we have so many unprofessional characters that are just sabotaging our team from the inside, and it's desperately frustrating because it's us as fans that suffer the most. We invest so much emotionally into all of this, and you just want good characters in control of this thing that you emotionally invest in so much. And unfortunately, we have mercenaries just trying to sabotage from the inside. So I'm sure we'll never find out who it was, as we never do, but I hope it gets dealt with correctly because this is not how Michael Carrick would probably want his tenure to start, especially on the derby day. So we move on. But yeah, so he goes on to say that basically this DNA, there is no DNA. Everyone's just hanging off nostalgia of how they played during that time, but that was just in the eyes of Sir Alex Ferguson. And in a similar way, they're saying about Ruben. Ruben had his way of playing, and he was trying to do things his way, and over time it get right. And there are a lot of similarities in terms of the process. When Sir Alex came in, the first 4 or 5 years were all over the place. Relegation fodder, people want him sacked, stuck to it, and they got somewhere. Same with Amorim, really. And we all could see, there's a lot of Amorim outers, and there's all valid arguments to why he might have wanted him out. But you can't deny that there was a little bit of progress being made, and progress takes time. And he got himself sacked. I think as more time has passed, it's kind of coming to light that it's quite likely that he orchestrated his own exit, knowing full well after what happened with Maresca that if he says a few hurty words, he's going to get the sack, because either you can argue maybe because the job was too big for him, maybe because he was too stressed out, or maybe just because the people he was working with just were too... I don't know, it was too hectic, it was too all over the place. There's a lot of media noise about things. I mean, we react to things we hear in the media that get released out, but how much of it is actually true, you don't know. I mean, how many we heard about Ollie was like knocking on the door, I'm living in Manchester, I'm ready to go, and he's offering himself almost for free, and Andy Mitten's like, that's just simply not true. United came to him, and he had an idea of how he wanted to do things, and so on and so forth. So there's always conflicting stories. But ultimately, this idea of philosophy, like the United DNA, isn't ingrained in a style of football per se. It's adapting these strict philosophies of what the culture and the club's about, but you have to bring your identity to it, and there's a synergy. Anyway, so the other thing I wanted to mention was that I saved here. Oh, Conte is taking a little bit of a swipe at Ruben. Some young coaches, this is from Centre Devils, some young coaches nowadays are arrogant and unwilling to adapt. They see a young striker struggling, Højlund in brackets, and instead of training him, they blame him. They always complain and blame everyone but themselves because they're handed everything ready-made. So I think it's fair argument about him not adapting. There were some, like, when Ruben started, people were like, you haven't got the players to play the 3-4-3, so surely you should adapt to what you have got to get the best out of them and slowly introduce your own players. And the narrative around that was, yeah, but then he's going against the very reason what he was brought in for, which is a totally fair argument. Like, this is what you asked me to do, and this is what I'm sticking to. If I start to change, then there's no point in me coming in the first place. But there is a valid argument to say that adaptability is important. I mean, Carrick, in his interview yesterday, said that. He was like, we've got players that fit certain positions and some that don't, so we're just going to have to adapt with the teams that we're playing and the squad that we've got and just go from there. And you like the flexibility of that because you think, well, okay, if we can adapt, then we can always mix it up a little bit, keep them guessing and not be too predictable, With Ruben, it was very obvious what we were going to play, and it made us very predictable. And it also became difficult because there were some games where, like, if you did it this way, if you changed to a back four for this game or whatever, then things could have been very different. But he was so rigid in his approach, he refused to change. And like I say, on the one hand, I admire it because he brought in for those reasons and he stuck to those principles. But on the other hand, I was like, adapting within the system isn't the end of the world. You're just utilising what you've got to the best of their ability. So it's I don't know, it's 50-50. I'm slightly on the fence with it, but he's taking a bit of a dig at him, saying basically you didn't adapt. And I think a lot of us could probably agree that if he did adapt a little bit more, we probably would have won more games than we drew. Some of those games that we lost, we might have turned into wins. So there's layers to it. But having a dig at him about this ready-made thing, I don't think that is accurate. I don't think anybody could say you're going into Man United with a ready-made squad. I mean, far from it. You're literally starting all over again every single time. So I'm not quite buying into that. There was one other thing that I saw that I wanted to share. Lastly, Roy Keane's scathing assessment. Rio Ferdinand has basically hit back. Now, as a lot of the content creators go and the ex-pundits and stuff, The Athletic did an article actually about how the ex-pundits... Oh, where's it? I don't think I saved it. Basically, the Athletic's done an article about ex-pundits and like how they're not strictly the problem. They never call out the ownership model and this, that and the other. And the ex-players, for people to be attacking them myself, I'm frustrated the way the narrative goes from some of the ex-players, the way they handle certain things. But they are essentially just giving their opinions, even if we do sometimes feel it's a bit overbearing and they just seem to don't really add any constructive criticism. It's just constant, just actual criticism. Nothing, you can't learn anything from it. But at the same time, they're definitely not the biggest part of the problem. It's the ownership model that's the problem. And some people are saying, well, they should redirect that attention to just complaining about the owners. Don't blame it all on ex-players. I don't think people are blaming the ex-players for where we are. I think there's an issue where the narrative seems to be detracting from you calling out the players all the time. You never call out the owners. So redirect that energy. Anyway, Rio Ferdinand, I would say as far as ex-players go, he definitely doesn't seem to be part of that same thing. He does call out some of the people. I mean, there was a video that he did a while ago directed towards Gary Neville where it's like, where's the consistency? I've said the same thing, like where's the consistency with, if you're going to attack Ruben all the time, where was the same attacks on Slot, who was doing worse, or Sesko and Wirtz? Like, so fair play to Rio for calling that out, because these are like people he played with and he's probably got a relationship with outside of all the media stuff. Anyway, now he's done the same thing. He's gone in on Keane, and it's quite a big post. I won't read all of it. But he basically said the stuff with the coaches and stuff like that and calling out the coaches. Johnny Evans is a young coach. Why shouldn't he get a chance? Why shouldn't he get a chance to come into the club? He knows every single player in that club better than any coach on the planet right now, other than the ones that have been there recently, because he's played there. He knows them all. Why wouldn't you bring him in on your staff? I don't understand. If you want to get to know what Kobbie Mainoo is like because you want to reboot him and put him in a team, I wouldn't mind having somebody that knows him, who's been in the changing room, who knows how he works, closer to me. How do we get a bit more out of Bruno? Because you know him. So what he's basically saying is, the appointment of Johnny Evans was highly criticised by Keane because he quit his loan officer job 4 weeks ago with United and has gone straight to the first team coaching with no coaching experience, which came under a lot of criticism from Roy and quite scathing. And to one extent, you can say, well, yeah, fair enough. We talk about wanting best in class. Is that best in class? But Rio's made a good point. But it's nuanced, isn't it? He might not be able to offer the coaching pedigree than some others might be able to, but he can offer something that a lot of other people can't, and that is like familiarity. Like, people recognise him, they know him, they've got a relationship with him, and that just helps build connections a bit better. It helps have those conversations that trying to build a relationship to have certain conversations. He can just go straight in there with that. So familiarity is important. And you might be able to get, on a man management side of things, you might be able to get a little bit more out of people in conjunction with the coaches. So I fully understand what Rio's getting at. He's obviously just pissed off. That's just what the last thing he said was. I actually understand why someone like Steve Holland's there. He's experienced. Michael Carrick wants an experienced coach alongside him. He's gone for someone like him. Like, what should he have gone for? Who else has got the experience that he should have gone for? Fair comment. I mean, I don't know much about Steve Holland, so I'm not going to pretend I do. But from all the stuff I've been hearing and reading the last few days, he's an excellent coach and he's highly regarded, so that's not a bad thing at all. He goes on to say, I don't know. I didn't agree with what Keane was saying. I don't know. I didn't agree with it with that, and that's where it starts, and that's fine. I think he's paraphrasing, talking about Keane. you can have that conversation and have that opinion, but I don't know. I just thought it was probably a bit. The gun was pointing at the wrong people. So there we go. And that's the point, isn't it? This is the problem with the ex-players. People going in on them. Their criticism of players and everything else is quite rife, but they never seem to criticise the owners and the bigger issue, which is really hypocritical because they all know it's true. But how much of an opinion on someone can you take when it's? I mean, is it? I don't know if is it a paid-for opinion to an extent, as in like say what you want, don't say this. Well, then how accurate is that opinion? Because if they're not going to talk about the real issues, then how much of what they're saying can you actually trust? You know, just a theory. Anyway, I'm going to go because game's going to start in just over an hour, and I cannot wait. I've got a blue T-shirt on. Fucking disgraceful, innit? I'm going to get changed. Have a great Derby game. Have a great Derby game, folks, and I'll catch you on another video.